Thilsted, who is the 2021 World Food Prize laureate and currently Director of Nutrition, Health and Food Security for the CGIAR, the Consultative Group on International Agricultural Research, the largest public network of international research institutes. So over to you, Shakuntala.
First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers very much for having me here. It's quite a pleasure to be here and to have such a diverse group of people in the room. This is not normally the kind of group that I would be talking to, so I hope that what I say resonates with what you are working with and that you can take some of it further to the work that you're doing. I have called the title of my presentation, The Role of Science and Technology in Transforming Food Systems to Nourish People and Planet. Long title, but this is what I have tried as you have heard that I was awarded the World Food Prize in 2021, and this is what I have used my academic work to deal with. How do you look at just not producing food, but have a people-centered approach with having people in the fore. And with the people comes the planet, because if we want to take care of the planet, the ones to take care of the planet are the people. So a people-centered approach is of utmost importance. And I'll explain why I have used the term food systems, which you hear a lot about at the global level now. This is quite a busy diagram, but this is the conceptual framework of food systems that's used. So it's just not production of food and the inputs to production, but it talks about very different entry points to food systems. And in my work, I would start at the consumption and move back to supply chains and to production of food and the inputs to production. Some people may start with policies. Others would start with reducing loss and waste, food environment, the behavior of people as they choose the foods that they eat and as they choose the foods that they produce. Starting with people and starting with the foods that people eat, I think is an important starting point. Very often when I sit in agricultural meetings and we start with production and the inputs to production, by the time we reach the supply chains, people have left or fallen asleep, and there's nothing about what the food is being produced, for whom and for what. So therefore, I'd like to turn that around and start with the consumption. Others, for example, may start with the policies and the investments that go into food systems. So this diagram gives you very many entry points and gives an opportunity for very many people to work with different aspects of the food systems. And this, I think, is important. Even though it's so busy, it's still not, there's quite a big gap in this system. Because if you look at the arrows, they go down, and there are only a few arrows that go back and forth. And we do know, for example, as we've heard today, that the health and nutritional status of human beings are important for agriculture, important for supply chains, and important for the foods we produce. Because if you do not have a well-nourished people, then your agriculture production is going to suffer. If you look at the last row, I wonder if you can read it in blue. When we talk about the availability, access, utilization, those were the three foremost components of agriculture, and also the food systems approach that were used up to about the start of the up to 2024. And then we expanded this to also include aspects of stability, agency, and very much the agency of women within food systems, and also sustainability, taking into consideration the climatic issues that we are facing today. So this is the framework that I use and that many people use now when we talk about food, when we talk about people, when we talk about climate, when we talk about production systems, supply chains, and even go further to talk about food loss and waste. I'd come to that. Let me give a brief overview of where we are at the global level. So in 2021, the United Nations held the Food Systems Summit, which was held at FAO in Rome. And since then, we have had a plus two years after the Food Systems Summit. And this year, in June or July, we held the plus 4 years after the Food Systems Summit, which was held in Addis Ababa. And these global initiatives are all leading up to what we have agreed upon, Agenda 2030, and the Sustainable Development Goals. When I work with food systems and I work with nourishing people and planet, I very much work with Goal 2, which is no hunger and no malnutrition. But this is the context in which we work with at the global level, and which we try to get countries mainly to fit in their programs with national pathways, with policies and investments to address Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals. We have all seen from starting with COVID-19. Before COVID-19, if you would look at the trends with global hunger and malnutrition, there was improvement, and we were all happy that we could reach to zero hunger to 2030. Then with the COVID-19, but not just with COVID-19, with the changes we have seen at global level with growing geopolitical conflicts, with climate change, we have seen increases in global hunger and malnutrition. Gaza was mentioned. It took a very long time for the UN to declare. It just happened in August of this year, where the UN declared that there was famine in Gaza, even though the whole world knew of what was happening in Gaza. And the situation in Africa, where you have over 11 million children in the Great Horn of Africa being malnourished, that's hardly talked about anymore. And we know that here in South Asia, it is estimated that over 280 million people are undernourished, which is a quarter of the total undernourished people in the world. So there is much we can do if we say that our goal is zero hunger and malnutrition, and if we are aiming towards a food systems paradigm that nourishes people and planet. And I really don't know how we are going to, what we are going to do and what would be the commitment at the global level as we move up to 2030 and realize that we are not going to meet the goal of zero hunger and malnutrition. Together with undernutrition, malnutrition, we do know also that there is an increasing prevalence of obesity and overweight. And this year it was estimated that 1 in 5 adults at the global level faces overweight and obesity. And we have seen the trends of the aggressive promotion of foods that are rich in fat, rich in salt, rich in sugar, and ultra-processed foods. And there is so much that can be done. There is so much that governments and companies should be held accountable. But if you look at what's happening now, what's taking place within this area, there is very little action. So with no action, we fear that the increase in obesity and overweight will continue and be very explosive. The CGIAR, to name some of the organizations that are working in this area, the CGIAR is the largest research organization working within the area of food systems. And the CGIAR has declared as its mission to transform food, land, and water systems in this climate crisis that we are facing. Before, I would say, 2020, you wouldn't have seen the mention of food from water because many focused just on food from land and, in fact, focus on the main staple foods. But this is changing, and we now realize that we have to focus more broadly on foods from different parts of the food systems. I am one of the 3 co-chairs of the Eat Lancet Commission, and on the 3rd of October this year, we launched the new report. The first report was from 2019, and this report is now from 2025. And the topic of this research is health, sustainable, and just food systems. There was a really big change and a big, I wouldn't say fight, but it was difficult to get that word just within the title of the report. And you know, I became very provocative at one time and said we should, of the 3 words that we are using, healthy, sustainable, and just, we should have just as the first word. Well, that I knew from before I said it that it would be very hard to get. But as we move forward, but with looking at food systems and the way that food systems are changing, I do hope that the prioritization of just would move to much higher prioritization, because that has to do again with people. Just take one simple, it's not the overall agenda, but just take the agenda of wages of women, wages of men, and the use of children within food systems. So there's very much work that has to be done to ensure that food systems are just for all. As I said, I focus a lot in my work on using the term nutrition-sensitive food systems, and that the systems that we set up should nurture both people and planet. And people before planet, as I said, because if without ensuring that people are nurtured, that they are well nourished, that they have the capabilities of taking care of themselves, their children, their families, then there's no way we are going to get action on the planet. So this is why we have to focus very much on the people and the different groups of people within societies. Okay. One of the first aspects that I talk about when we talk about nourishing people and planet is dietary diversity. We know we come from systems in the 60s where we focused a lot on the staple food crops. For example, rice in this part of the world and maize. And rice and maize in Africa. And we do know that that had profound improvements, for example, on the number of people who were dying of starvation. But that's not where we are today. Luckily, we do not see many people dying of starvation today. But what we see today is that people are not well nourished, that the diets that they are consuming do not give them the possibility to be healthy and well nourished. And for me, the most important point in this paradigm shift is improving dietary diversity. And when we talk about dietary diversity, it's also foods from many different sources, from land, from forest, and foods from water. So this is an important first point that I would like to make in moving forward for nourishing people and planet. Especially if you look at diets in this part of the world, in Asia, if we do not leverage seasonality, then it's very difficult to get dietary diversity. And seasonality is leveraged in many ways, using many of the traditional practices that we have used for drying, fermenting, smoking in Africa. And many of these ways of treating foods have disappeared, and we need to bring them back and work with them much more actively in order to leverage seasonality so we can get the dietary diversity we need to nourish both people and planet. That also helps, for example, I work a lot with fish systems in Africa and Asia, and that helps, for example, ensuring that people get fish at all times of the year, because if you can harvest fish in the seasons of plenty and then dry them, salt them, then you would have them for longer seasons when there is scarcity and when prices are high. So it's an important point. Leveraging seasonality is extremely important for making sure that diverse foods are available and that they are affordable for all. And in also leveraging seasonality, it will be really important for reducing food loss and waste, which is a really big problem. Up to last year, we were using a value of 1/3 of foods produced is lost or wasted. And just a few months ago, with new calculations, it has been decided that the amount that should be used for foods lost and wasted should be increased from 33% to 40%. Imagine. If we could put that food to better use. Let me move over to some of the new methods and technologies that some have put in use in order to work with food systems to nourish people and planet. Biofortification. This is one area that India has been has been engaged a lot in. And also in Africa, we've worked a lot, for example, with biofortified sweet potato, vitamin A-rich sweet potato. In India, there has been a lot of focus in the last recent years on millet, and the millets that are fortified with minerals. Also beans that are fortified with zinc, and in Africa, maize that's fortified with zinc. There has been in China a lot of work done on trying to get rice varieties which are fortified with iron, and that hasn't been successful, and therefore that work has been given up for now with respect to biofortification. The packets I have there is, I think it's from Tanzania, where different grains are mixed together and made into a powder, which can be used for complementary foods for young children. And in using the combination of different grains, then we also get a combination of different nutrients. In India, there has been a lot of talk to use the fortified millet with other foods, also, for example, small powder of small fish species. And I think that's some work that's already going on in Odisha, for example. There is, I would have said the word hype, but no, there is a lot of interest in the use of big data and artificial intelligence for novel technologies. Just recently, at the beginning of this year, the complete genome of orange sweet potato varieties in Africa were established, and these varieties have higher dry matter, plus they are more disease resistant, and in having this data, for example, a crop like sweet potato, which is extremely important, also as a staple in Africa, is extremely important for moving forward with developing new varieties that have, as I said, higher dry matter content, but higher disease resistant. In Africa also, they've used big data and also used artificial intelligence to get the sequencing for tilapia fish in Lake Victoria of different subspecies of the tilapia fish, and in doing so, then they can use the genomic information in developing new species, subspecies, and in ensuring that they are robust, that the species are robust, and again, that they are, for example, fast-growing and they are disease-resistant. So there's very much that we have seen the world moving forward with big data and artificial intelligence. And if we go to places like, I've seen it in Singapore, and also China and different parts of Asia, this is something which attracts young people to try to find space for themselves in agriculture. In using big data and artificial intelligence, there is, as I see it, an issue, because that science is based on numbers, and it's based on codes. And in using that science alone, without the integration of indigenous knowledge and practices, then we are missing out a big part of the knowledge we have to ensure that our food systems can nourish people and planet. Indigenous knowledge and practices tells us a lot about rainfall patterns, tells us a lot about disease control, about the way that indigenous populations use foods and use their surroundings to produce food. And if we do not find a way to combine indigenous knowledge and practices together with big data and artificial intelligence, then we are doing ourselves a huge disservice. So I do hope that the younger generation will be able to find a way where you can combine numbers and codes with photos and knowledge that's in different languages, that is storytelling. There must be a way to combine both so that we can reach to better understanding of where we are with our food systems. Let me give an example from Odisha, where science and technology, which has been used, for example, for carp production, has been used in Odisha for the mass production of small fish seeds in hatcheries. And these fish seeds are bought by farmers for their fish ponds. And in so doing, we get a more diverse system. It's just not tilapia being produced or carp species being produced, but it's a variety of fish species, both large and small fish, which are being produced in ponds in Odisha. We've also moved this technology to Assam and to Bihar, and there are talks with the Kerala University of Ocean and Fisheries Studies to use this method for ensuring that there is fish species of many different varieties that can be used in production systems, thereby having a greater dietary diversity. And why are fish species important? The small fish species are important, mainly because they are eaten whole, and by being eaten whole, with all parts of the fish being eaten, you get greater nutrient contents, for example, of calcium, vitamin A, and other nutrients. But not just nutrients, but also bioactive compounds, which are essential for health and essential for fighting diseases, are components of these small fish species. There's a lot of talk about new technologies, and one that is in India, and especially used in rice production, is the agricultural zones. If you go, and what I found that was really interesting to read about is this technology of agricultural zones, where we in the past, when we had tractors and pumps and stuff, those technologies came from the north, from richer countries to countries in Asia and Africa. This is not how agricultural zones have started. It has started in this part of the world, in China, it's China, Japan, Korea, Thailand, and also in India. And the government has bought into this program. You have the subsidy programs, for example, the Drone DD program, which is here. And we know that it is being used in Kerala with respect. It started, and there seems to be a lot of interest for sowing rice seed in Kerala using agricultural drones. So I do see this technology as moving fast in Asia. There are many aspects that has to be taken into consideration. What happens with agricultural labor when we start using more drones? What happens to the poorer laborers that earn their living working in agriculture if, for example, we use more drones and they takes up their employment? circular economy and upcycling of food systems. This I see, I've already touched on this, that we now declare that 40% of our food is wasted and lost, and we must find ways to use this. And there are many new technologies we can do for using, for working with the circular economy. In Africa, for example, cassava peels and the black soldier flies are now being used for fish feed and for animal feed, and that is important because it means that where, for example, in certain parts of India, where you use fish as fish to feed fish, for example, or to feed shrimp, where that fish should instead be used for human consumption, but it's used to feed animal. If we would use our technologies and use the science with respect to circular economy and upcycling food systems, then we can put that 40% of loss and waste to better use, to produce more food and not use the food that we should use for human consumption to feed animals, for example. Let me end by giving some points that I think is important for moving forward. I've already mentioned this very much, that we should always consider a people-centered approach. By having a people-centered approach, this is the basis for nourishing both people. And when I work with different population groups, I focus a lot on young children and pregnant and lactating women, but I also do know now that in having a people-centered approach, we must also take into consideration the growing numbers of elderly in populations. Investments are important, and maybe today even more important with the decrease we have been seeing in aid. If just take the programs we have had in many parts of Asia, which have been funded with big investments from USA, that has now stopped. So governments must be really smart and strategic in the investments they're going to put in place for research, innovation, capacity sharing, and policy shaping. And I do think this is going to be difficult for many governments, especially in Africa, because, and I think help is needed by many governments to move forward with these strategic investments. But I do think one way of moving forward with this is by having South-South collaboration. So I have been talking to, for example, the Asian Development Bank and the African Development Bank, the Latin American Caribbean banks. If these institutions can go together and promote South-South collaboration, I do think there's a wealth of information and a wealth of technologies that can be used by having a better South-South collaboration. I've already mentioned this about that, yes, there is no way we can stop the movement forward with digital technologies and artificial intelligence, but we must combine this with traditional knowledge and culture. And I do look upon the youth in this room to find ways of making sure we can make that combination between big data, artificial intelligence, and combining it with traditional knowledge and indigenous practices. There's a big movement now at the global level where there's talk about, let us look at how we move forward with science and let us make sure that there's a greater democratization of science and a decolonization of the knowledge that we move with science. So this fits in well here. So I don't make a call to all the young people in the audience to find ways and to work within this space and make sure that we get this combination. And it's not just, if I say, starting with people and nourishing people and planet. A great starting point is with young people and women, pregnant and lactating women, because that's the foundation for a healthy society, for well-nourished people. And without having the well-nourished people, then we won't have children who can perform well in schools. We won't have grown-ups who can do well at their jobs. We won't be able to invest in the national economies. And we won't be able to have a system which can take care of the elderly. And we need all this in order to have systems that can nourish people and planet together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shakuntala.
Participant. First of all, allow me to express my deep gratitude to Phát for inviting me to participate on this important forum and giving me opportunity to come to this holy country. For all Vietnamese, India is holy place, as Buddhism came from here, and many more. My topic of my presentation today is income from rice in Asia. In literature, you can find many work on this topic for different countries. And from time to time, you can find also comparative analysis as well. But when organizer success, I thought that I want to do this analysis. But it was impossible in short time to visit all countries to do survey. So I did mostly desk review of existing survey from different countries and compare and analyze from perspective of policy maker to see what are lying beneath changes in the rice sector in the region, in Asia. So, in Asia, rice is life. And more than that, rice growing is culture, is way of life. In Vietnam, we even say that we have rice civilization. But in Asia, we are producing and consuming 90% of rice produced and consumed in whole world. But 90% of that 90% is produced in 8 countries. India number 1, China number 2, Bangladesh number 3, Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, Philippines, and Myanmar. So I want to say that, so production of rice in Asia, it's important not only for Asia, but for food security of whole world, and role of India, of China, of those 8 countries are very substantial. So for last 23 years, we are happy to see that rice production keeps growing, both in whole world and in Asia. And likely that growth, the global growth, mostly thanks to the Asian growth. But this graph shows you that among 8 largest rice producers in India, Bangladesh, Philippines, and Thailand, for last 22 years, rice production has been growing. But in 4 countries, China, Myanmar, Vietnam, and Indonesia, especially for last 5-6 years, rice production was declining. And what's remarkable that compared to 2010, global rice production increased by 87 million tons, 63 million tons from India. So India saved the world. 72% of growth came from India. And it worrisome that some those big rice growers are declining. So if look at national level, I took here 2 examples. So in Bangladesh, according to Bangladesh Rice Knowledge Bank, nearly 48% of rural employment, 1/2 of agriculture and GDP, and 1/6 of national income is from rice. It is big. But in Vietnam, yes, it used to be big too. But in 2024, it went down relatively. Now occupy 15% of agriculture and GDP, 1.6 national GDP, and 1.4 export revenue only, so declining. As economy grow, relative share of agriculture, of rice, declining. But social importance of rice never decline. Look at Japan. You can be convinced of that. So, but why farmers are growing rice is no longer for themselves, mostly for selling. As in Asia, 53% of people now are living in cities. So farmers grow rice for selling to people who living in cities, and of course among themselves. So that's why income is very important incentive for them to work, to invest. But their income depends on many factors: farm, land size and ownership, market condition, selling prices, technology, infrastructure, labor costs, support services, policies, and weather. So if look at land size, I collected data. So you can see in Asia, we have about 130 million rice farmers, 150 around the world. So in Bangladesh, average land size only 0.81 hectare per farm. In China, 74% farmer has less than 0.46 hectare, less than half a hectare. In Vietnam, 85% of rice farmer has less than half of hectare. In my home village, we have less than 300 square meter per person. We have to squeeze from 1 square meter for living one day. So I can say in literature, some say that most of rice farmer has less than 2 hectares. I can say that most of them are having less than 1 hectare of land. And what we are observing, green is positive, red is negative trends, in my opinion. So we see that all nations consider rice production, rice sector is important, and pay a lot of attention on it. That's very good. Secondly, a lot of technology improvement. In India, in China, recently scientists even invented rice varieties which give more than 20 tons of rice per hectare, per crop. Can you imagine? We look at the rice field, only rice. You don't see leaf or stem. And we heard from Erie also many new inventions. We have see very fast improvement of infrastructure, especially irrigation, and a lot of new inputs, new machinery, drone, yeah. But we see also very serious negative trends. First, comparative advantage of rice farming decrease. I would say attractiveness of rice farming is declining as countries industrialize and urbanize. So industrialization and urbanization create a lot more opportunity for higher income generation. And industrialization, urbanization compete for land, not compete, they take land. And first, in many cases, rice land, and water, and labor, and other resources from rice as well. And secondly, we see very strong trend that countries converting rice land for other higher income crops and for urban or industrial development. You can see that in China. You see that in Japan. In Japan, in 1960s, there were more than 3 million hectares. Now only half of that. In Vietnam, we converted about 15% of rice land. And we have planned to convert in these 3 decades, 1/4 of rice land of Vietnam. And we can no longer have potential for develop further new land. No more, no more, no more. And we see increase of labor costs. We see frequent market disturbances, even disruption. We see negative impact of climate change more and more. And we see environmental degradation, especially land degradation. So this trend very seriously impact rice farming and farmers' income. But when we look at concrete farm, normally farmer think of prices first. So, yes, of course. For last 23 years, you can see yellow graph. That is producer prices in US dollar per ton of paddy in Japan. It's very high. So for example, in 2020, it was $6.4 per kilogram. Yeah, that's very high. Yeah, but in the other countries, China, India, and other countries, you can see below $500 per ton. Yeah. So that is below 50 cents. But you can see they are similar, little bit different. So now we compare the cost. You can say on left side, the cost I converted into US dollar using the exchange rate at the same time. You can see that average cost is between 15 cents in Vietnam and 32 cents in China. But in Japan, it was $1.45 per kilogram of paddy. So 10 times higher than the rest of Asia. So, but net income from 1 hectare, you can see that it varies from $200 in Philippines to $6,570 in Japan. But except Japan, the rest of Asia, about between $500 and $1,000 per hectare, per crop. So as we have only half of hectare, and we grow 2 crops a year, so average farmer get about $500, $1,000 per year. Net income. That is all. So do you think that farmer will continue grow rice for us with that net income? Especially my friend in Philippines. I am asking, why Filipino farmer grow rice and get $200 per crop per year, per hectare? When they continue grow? That's why I see 30 years ago when I went to Erie to study. on training course. I saw rice along on the way from Manila to Erie. Now on the way I see winning. So I go deep into the cost structure of in Philippines and Vietnam. So you can see that total cost about the same. But and prices about the same, but productivity in Philippines is almost half of that in the Mekong Delta of Vietnam. That's why unit cost in Vietnam is 2 times cheaper than in Philippines. That's why we are exporting rice to Philippines. But in Vietnam, we are using more inputs. In Philippines, the government support, so input costs lower. But many Filipinos have to pay very high land rent. In Vietnam, most farmers do not pay because 25 years ago, we redistributed land. We gave land for landless for free. And now they cultivate. They don't have to. They don't have to pay. But now we are encouraging that even farmers to lease land from smallholder who want to go to city to work. And now we start to have land lease. But 99% still do farming on their land. That's why they don't pay land rent. And we exempt tax. So that's why, so in cost structure, I don't see big problem here. Of course, we need to reduce inputs, reduce labor costs, but most important is to increase productivity and at the same time increase value of rice. So what I observe, what I am thinking here, you can see that relative share of income from rice in most national economies is moderate, except maybe Bangladesh, and decreasing. Most small rice households got annual income from rice around 500 to 1,000 US dollar per year. Per unit cost, mostly 15 or 30 US dollar per kilogram. So the cheapest in India, in Vietnam. And at this conference, I want to learn why India industrialized, urbanized very fast, and farmers still grow rice, and rice production still growing. When in China, Vietnam, Japan, even in Indonesia, going down. And what to do to reverse, to ensure food security for this region, for each country, and for whole world? We see, as we analyze, total cost of irrigated rice production per hectare per crop in India, Myanmar, Bangladesh, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam were about the same, but different in unit cost, mostly because of productivity. The cost of input occupy largest share. In some countries, land costs are high for tenants and costs of labor and services are rising as country industrialize. And industrialization, urbanization put additional big pressure on rice sector. I'm not against industrialization and urbanization. Country must do that to get prosperous. But we need to do in balanced way. So, what to do? To maintain rice sector to continue to develop, to ensure food security for nation, for whole world. First at all, we need to improve income of rice grower to maintain incentive for them to work hard, to invest in rice. So first of all, we need to have right approach to rice sector. Rice sector must be protected and must be, development of rice sector must be first priority in agricultural development plan in this region, in every country. Secondly, we need enabling market-oriented policy setting. Thirdly, we need to have more advanced, resilient, win-win technology. Why win-win? Win-win means that higher income for farmers, but less emission. Improve infrastructure and support services, especially irrigation. As to policies, I think countries should review land policy. There are many issues. There is very sensitive political issues. But at least we need to think of control of rice land conversion, not allow it to be converted so freely as in some countries. In Vietnam, for sometimes it was too liberalized. And secondly, we need to have appropriate water use policy. We need to invest in irrigation, but we should be very careful with subsidizing water. We may create wrong incentive in water use. And when farmers use more water, continuous flooding would create more emission. And main measure to reduce emission from rice field is application of alternate dry and wet techniques. And third, we need to have an enabling financial system to assist all participants in the rice value chain. And it's very important also to have open, liberalized, level playing, transparent, market-oriented trade policy. This very complicated subject, we can discuss a lot more. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Phát. And we will bring this session to a close shortly. But I'd just like to say that I think the two plenary speakers have, in a sense, covered a large part of the food systems. He's worked on, all the constraints on the production, land, income, And, but ultimate goal is what you were saying, people ensuring that all people in the world are nourished. So thank you very much to our speakers, and I think this is a good start to our sessions. I now call on the conference coordinator, Dr. T.P. Harshan, whom you're all familiar with on email, but you actually will see him in person now. Harshan. A big, big hand to him. And for him.
I'm Harshan, coordinator of this conference, and I work at Foundation for Agrarian Studies. So I have few announcements to make. One is I will just introduce halls that we are going to have tomorrow. From tomorrow onwards, our sessions are happening in 4 halls. One is this hall, that is Vinyam. Then we have 3 more halls. One is Bay, then Waves, and Aqua, and this hall. That halls are on the right side, like if you go outside near the pool. And there are signages. We kept signages everywhere. So, and also our volunteers will be there if you find difficulties to reach to the halls. So tomorrow, please also go through the schedule. We kept the schedules in the conference bag. So tomorrow, first session will be here. We will start at 9. And after that, the second plenary, that will be also here from 11:15 to 1. Afternoon, we will have 3 parallel sessions. One is in this hall, Vinyam, then Bay Hall and Waves Hall. So there will be signage to reach to these halls. So from 4 to 6:30, we will have 4 parallel sessions. One is in this hall, then Bay Hall, Wave Hall, and Waves Hall, and Aqua Halls. Day 3, we will have again a plenary session that will be here, Vinyam Hall. Then we will have 3 parallel sessions. One is in this hall, and Bay Hall and Waves Hall. And after that evening, we will have 4 parallel sessions, Vinyam, Bay, Waves, and Aqua. So after that, on 8th, from 6:30 to 8:30, we have a special cultural program. The details are placed in your conference booklet about the details about the cultural event. So last day we will have 3 parallels. We will start. We will have 2 sessions. One is in the Vinyam Hall and Bay Hall. After that, we will have a common session. So now there are few changes in the conference schedule. Tomorrow on session 1A, that is from 2:15 to 4 p.m., Dr. Mihiga Chatterjee will be the speaker in place of Dr. Sadendra Kumar. And session 2A, that is from 4:30 to 6:15 afternoon, Dr. Neeladri Shekhardar will be the chair. And after that, in the evening session, that is between 4:30 to 6, Priya Kumari will be a speaker in a session 2D. So next day, on November 8th, Archana Tamang, she will be a speaker on the in session 5A. Oh, too much. Okay. So we will do one thing. We will try our best to get a copy to you tomorrow, and also we will keep on posting in our conference website. We will send, of course, we will send the email of the details. So we will try to get the copy and circulate whatever the changes that we were made in the conference and the schedule. Other thing about the website, kindly keep tracks on the updates on the conference website. Papers and presenters have been uploaded in a password protected section of the website. The password is already shared with you, and it is meant for only for the registered conference participants. So a travel desk has been set up near the registration area. Participants who are, especially young scholars who are entitled for travel reimbursement, are requested to visit the desk during the breaks during tomorrow. List of affairs contact persons is available in the conference booklet. Please feel free to get in touch with our conference concerned person if you need any assistance or any requirement. So the tomorrow section, as I mentioned, will begin at 9 a.m. We will do our best to follow the schedule, something affairs is always try to keep and are very well known. For that, we request your cooperation for helping for affairs us to maintain our record. We have our timekeepers. They will keep on coming to you and will ask you to come to the stage. Even morning also, you may get a call. So for a smooth functioning of our sessions. We request all the participant for your cooperation for enhancing our conference presence, especially in social media, especially our young scholars who are very active in social media. Please follow and use our handles and hashtags, and that is provided in the social media kit. Photos and reports. Every day after the event, we have a social media team and rapporteur team. They are going to upload our reports and photos in the website, in our social media, official social media page, not in the website. You are encouraged to share our photos and other our reports about our conference in your platform which you are using to help us to amplify our reach of various updates about our conference. One more thing, we have a bookstall by Modern Bookstall. It's a very popular bookstall in Trivandrum. Please explore the books there. They have a very good collection. And also our journal, Review of Agrarian Studies, is also available on the stall. And our publishing partner, Tuliga Books, has generously announced 50% discounts for our Review of Agrarian Study issues that is available in the bookstall for all the participants. Tomorrow there will be 3 more stalls here. Cooperative Department of Government of Kerala, they are going to put the Kerala products that will be available on the on that side. Tomorrow that will be also available. So after this, we are going to have a photography session. We will have tomorrow. Oh, okay. Sorry, we will have the photography session tomorrow. We will inform the time. So now we will go for the dinner. Dinner will start at 8 below on the conference dinner side. Thank you.